or wanted to have Ann Vandersteel on the show. First of all, I just happen to really like Ann Vandersteel, and I think she's much smarter than me, much prettier than me. So I like to have her on the show as much as I can because she adds an element that I can't. She's very in tune with the financial markets. And because I've been covering MMTLP and I can't answer a lot of the questions, I just want transparency. She put something out about Iran. And let me just read it to you. This is about banking, Iran, cryptocurrency, and the like. And I want her to explain it because Isaiah and I probably could not explain this as well as Ann Vandersteel can. And you can check out, by the way, you can check out AnnVandersteel.com if you want to see her work. A brilliant lady. Here's what she writes. America needs to understand what just happened. Iran built an entire sanction-proof system using crypto, especially USDT digital dollars. Their central bank and IRGC moved money through it to bypass the global banking system. Then, on April 23rd, 2026, $344 million in USDT was frozen instantly, not seized later, not chased through banks, frozen on chain, because USDT isn't decentralized. It can be blacklisted. Wallets can be shut off, and that freeze was done in coordination with U.S. Treasury and law enforcement. Read that again. A nation tried to escape the system and got shut down with a command. Now look at the Clarity Act. It doubles down on the model. Track, trace, report to the IRS. Every wallet tied to identity. Every transaction visible. Every asset controllable. This isn't about Iran. This is the blueprint. Ask yourself, is this a CBDC in disguise? And that caught my attention because I don't trust anything that's going on in our government. I mean, absolutely nothing. Again, if the government says today is Thursday, I think it's Friday. That's the way I look at it right now, Isaiah. I don't buy anything that they have to say. And it appears that Ann Vandersteel, who seems pretty in tune with the financial markets, that's why she's been a big advocate for what MMTLP is trying to get out to the markets. She is the one that was, we played her clip of defending Michael Castellero just recently. So let's bring her in, the aforementioned, the lovely, the talented Ann Vandersteel. Ann, what's going on?
Wow, I think you're giving me way too much credit, but hey,
I didn't give you enough.
Thursday, I'll take it.
I didn't give you enough because you do things that I wish that I could do. Like when you put out these reports and you explain things, I just think you do such a great job. But you're one of the very few that kind of in 5 or 10 minutes can cut through very complicated information and make sense of it all. And that's why I wanted to have you on for this particular post that you put out. Can you explain the situation with Iran, cryptocurrencies, and what you're trying to make people aware of?
Sure. So let's rewind the clock back to when, Bitcoin first arrived on the scene. What we have learned from the Epstein files is that Jeffrey Epstein was definitely involved in the generation and the development of Bitcoin from a funding perspective. So knowing what we know about Epstein now and his connections to the intelligence community, it's, for me, that has always been sort of a hard no-go zone. In other words, I never invested in Bitcoin and I would not want to own Bitcoin. I've been a solid believer in physical, tangible assets, gold and silver, as that is real money. It's biblical. It's in our Constitution. Okay, set that aside. Now we just have, and that's a very high level overview on Bitcoin. It doesn't mean that people don't believe in it. Remember, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But let's talk about what's happened. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were always set up for the decentralization aspects, the fact that you could transact without the government knowing what your business was. So what happened to Iran? Well, it could only have happened with the Genius Act and Clarity and the fact that FedNow and FinCEN and they've moved Bitcoin out of the SEC's operational control, so to speak, under the CFTC. But let's get down to the nitty gritties because the Genius Act doesn't make stablecoins, right? We're going to talk about stablecoins here for a second. Part of the Federal Reserve System. It actually plugs them into the control architecture of the Fed. So the Treasury, the banking system, the FinCEN, et cetera, they control, the Fed actually, as we know, controls the base money, all of our reserves, our dollar liquidity, et cetera. The Treasury controls the enforcement mechanisms, which is anti-money laundering, sanctions, and FinCEN. And the system distributes all money under those rules. So the Genius Act inserts the stable coins, which have to have a 1-to-1 ratio. You have to be backed. If you're going to have a stable coin, you have to be backed by U.S. Treasuries, bank deposits, or any cash equivalent. The Genius Act inserts those stable coins directly into that triangle. So if you think about that, you are now realizing that you're living inside this Fed-controlled system. So even if you think your stable coin is private, right? It's still backed. It's still regulated by the Fed. It depends on the treasury markets because it has to be backed, and it's subject to any liquidity rules that are, being shaped by the Federal Reserve. So what does that mean? It means stablecoins essentially are some sexy sounding wrapper around what we know to be the Fed controlled money system. So understanding that that's the case, would it be any wonder that when Iran, who has been sanctioned into an oblivion by the United States for years now, tries to sneak one around and move their money and assets through Bitcoin and through their own crypto, all of a sudden finds themselves getting their assets seized because it's still running through the same payment rails, through the same banking system. So that banking integration basically is the equivalent of access control by the Fed regulated institutions. And that allows them to operate legally under the Genius Act. So you have to, if you want to be legal, you've got to partner with these regulated banks. You have to maintain custody relationships. And these banks are all part of the Federal Reserve System. So this is how Iran got themselves into a chokehold still with the United States government. Pretty
Wow.
sounds it's very genius, but it's evil in the sense that people were lured into all this crypto thinking that they were going to be safe from the federal layer, and you're not.
I kind of felt that was happening too. I didn't get into it. A lot of people that are very smart and made a lot of money on crypto, quite honestly, a lot of dollars, if you will, were telling me to get into crypto, and I'm like, I just don't understand it. I don't like to. I don't have enough money to invest on things that are games to me. And when the people are trying to get me to invest, I just said I don't understand it. I can't invest in something that I don't quite understand.
Sure.
I was going to ask you too. The Genius Act. I believe the Genius Act, when it was being pushed, the states did not want to be centralized with regulation on crypto and on AI. Is that the way you remember it? Because I remember having these conversations.
Yeah. The states are really in the fight of their life, and it takes a governor with guts to stand on the 10th Amendment.
Are there any?
Well, Paul Renner, hopefully our governor of Florida, if we can, beat the Byron brigade back, which is just, absolutely insane that he even has a platform at this point with everything we know about him. But yeah, we don't really have governors with guts. That's the problem. And that's what we need is governors with guts that'll stand on the 10th, because that does protect us from an overarching, tyrannical government that's waging war using, bureaucracies like the SEC, like the CFTC, to rope-a-dope us into what we think is, sublime, when it turns out all we're doing is we're being put into the same anti-money laundering, know your customer compliance, all the sanction and enforcement that goes on there. And they're going to be monitoring all these transactions, because all of those transactions are going to flow through FinCEN, which is the Treasury, and they're going to be sharing all of our data with all the regulators. So the Fed doesn't have to run on enforcement directly, but it's operating direct in lockstep with the Treasury. So again, this is how Iran got trapped, and this is how we, the people, are going to be trapped. And then you layer in the Clarity Act, and then the IRS is up your butt with a microscope. It's serious. It's no different than just keeping your cash in the bank at this point.
That was when the Genius Act, as I remember it, was the argument was that we wanted to be able to regulate AI within the states, and that was a big argument. Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about it a lot, and then they kind of gave us like it was going to be fine. The states are going to be able to regulate through the Genius Act, or the Genius Act wouldn't totally encompass all of the states, but it did. It did. Yeah. Now we have centralized power with the Genius Act. So all this AI is now federally. It's all determined federally. And do I have that right? That's the way I understand it. That's what Marjorie.
You have it right. I mean, here's the next layer that people don't want to talk, don't want to swallow on this, but we've all been fighting no CBDC. So Trump signed an executive order, no CBDC. But, even if the Genius Act isn't mandated to be programmable, once the money is now digitized,
She froze up. When you're talking the Fed, this is what happens. See if she pops back on, because I got so many questions to ask her, Isaiah. Can you text her maybe? Text her, let her know if she froze up. Hang on 1 second, everybody. What does she need to do, Isaiah?
Probably just leave and join back in, because she's completely frozen. So something must have happened on her end with Wi-Fi or the camera.
She'll realize it here in just a minute.
Yep.
I'll text her while we're doing that. See, she talks about these financial situations in a manner that I can't do it. I want to do it.
Here's some comments we can go through while she's trying to join back in.
Right.
Someone said, Jay Brown said, That's really good info. Stablecoins will be regulated and the liquidity maintained by the Fed. So the Fed can continue to extract liquidity. Sounds like there is no other way.
Mhm.
And then someone said Kehoe certainly does not have guts.
Well, no, that's what that's where I want to get with her because she's pushing Paul Renner, who was the former Speaker of the House in the state of Florida. Paul Renner, we've had him on the show twice now. He agrees with everything that we're talking about. I think that's why Ann likes him. He has experience, military guy,
Yeah.
very measured, very articulate. When he comes on, it feels like he could do radio. And I think we're starting to recognize that the traditional way of Republican thinking, which is top down, the federal government tells you what to think from and all these different issues, and then the people within the states just parrot it, and that becomes the way it works. Let me see if she's responding to me here. Where is Ann? Anything else on the chat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got tons of stuff. People said, are income taxes illegal? Someone else, then Jay Brown again said, when they relaxed the regulations on AI to a federal level, I knew we were screwed. And then lots of support from the MMTLP community. People are just putting in their appreciation to you and to Ann for covering the situation.
They should give it to Ann because Ann has done an amazing job with MMTLP. I was just getting the story out there. She's actually she studied it backwards and forwards and could talk about it for hours as to what's going on with MMTLP. That's why I hope we get to her because I know the MMTL people will begin to join and they'll want to see what she has to say. So let's give her time to get back in here. And here's what we are going to ask. We get Ann. If not, I'll get her on the phone if we need to. We'll try to call her. There she is. Get back on.
Yep.
All right. Bring her back in.
Get her back in here.
Sorry about that. My internet crashed again. I think twice in 1 week. I don't know what they're doing in the neighborhood. They're obviously tampering with the lines.
Is it Mossad?
My husband very happy.
We assume everything's Mossad now. That's what we're.
Yes,
it's Mossad. No, I don't know. I mean, I guess Xfinity is going to send me a text here shortly telling me what happened, but that's just bad. I'm going to ask for a refund.
Well, especially for your line of work, right? You need that internet to be working quite well, right?
All the time. Thank God I can limp along on.
Yeah. Oh, you're still freezing up just a little bit. You might have just internet problems in general.
Yeah.
I can hear you though. I can hear you. The picture now is good. We'll go as long as we can. Let me bounce over to Paul Renner because I think I'm going to meet you down on May 23rd in Paul Renner's event. How well do you know this guy? Because I've had him on the show twice, and I was just telling the audience, I really like the way he goes about his business. He's very measured. As I said, he sounds like he could do radio because of his articulation of his thought process is very clear. I understand what he's talking about. It doesn't feel like he's trying to BS me. You know, when you get some of these politicians on and you ask them a difficult question, it takes them 10 minutes to not give you the answer. He was not doing that. He was giving me the answers as we went along here in his position on things. Do you know him very well? Is this somebody that you just align with politically, or is this somebody that you happen to know?
I've gotten to know him. I met him months ago and have been able to talk on the phone with him many times, text with him. I sent him a text this morning, as a matter of fact, on some issues. And I know his senior campaign strategist and advisor, Amy Maria Delgado. I've worked with her for over 10 years now, and she and I are very aligned. So when she first brought him to me, it was after she decided she was going to leave the Byron Donalds campaign. And she said, you know what? I don't like what I see, and I love what I see over here, and I want you to meet this guy. I'd heard of him, but I didn't know anything about him other than, I had to do my own research and look and see what he did. He was incredibly effective during the DeSantis term for the architecture of the free state of Florida. So am I connected?
No, you're okay. We can hear you. You're cutting in and out a little bit. We can hear you.
I just see it going black. And I just want to make sure it's not me. So from the free state of Florida position, I said that's fantastic because, as you know, I run this Lincoln Freedom Foundation, which operates under the name of American Made. And we're very much about health sovereignty, medical freedom, et cetera. But in addition to that, property taxes have crushed people in Florida. They check every. And it's already, property tax is the legal phase of it. But that being said, that's another fish to fry. There's a million.
What a bummer.
Up for $50,000 for a homestead. Right now, we get a $50,000 homestead deduction. $50,000 off tax property value. He's going to give it $1 million. So most of Florida probably won't pay property tax. Because I dare say most people have a salary for $1 million. They may have a real estate value for $1 million, but the tax appraisal value is always far short of that. So I'm like thrilled because I pay property tax. That's a big rate. Buy a car.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're cutting out, and hang on one second. I think we should do this by phone because I want to hear what you
want me
have
to
to
call
say.
in?
See, now you clear up. Now you clear up right when I say Mossad heard that we were going to call you, and then they cleaned up. But let's do a phone.
Okay.
Live. Well, I can hear you, but if you cut up, then I'm just going to call you,
How
and
about
we'll
I
put
do
you on
this? How about I just do this? Maybe this will help. That might help. It's less bandwidth.
We're hearing you. Isaiah's shaking his head. Yes.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Yeah, I just took the camera off, which makes it more, it makes it easier to.
I was going to say, Isaiah, maybe put a picture up of Ann so people know who we're talking to. If they're
On it.
scrolling. Yeah, if we're scrolling through social media. Okay, Ann. So Paul Renner, I tend to agree with you. What is your take on this Jim Fishback? He's been on the show right at the very beginning. I saw him on social media, and he said he was going to sue the Fed. He seems to have a lot of the same positions as Paul. Have you looked into Jim Fishback down in Florida? Have you talked to him at all?
I met him at an event for a congressional candidate, John Strand, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago or so over in Naples. And nice guy, well-spoken, very articulate, very passionate, really gets the young crowd riled up, which I
Yes.
love because the
Yep.
youngsters the youngsters seem to be disengaged from politics for the most part, but they seem to be engaging with Fishback, which is fantastic. It is my understanding that although he is a born and raised Florida native, he did move to Washington, D.C. for a period of time where he registered to vote, which is fantastic. I'm glad he stayed engaged in the process. But when you change your voter registration and your residency, and then you come back to Florida and re-register and reestablish residency, you must have 7 consecutive years of residency and voting on the record to statutorily be eligible to run for governor. And it is my understanding or comprehension that he does not meet that statutory requirement based on his return to Florida. So
Wow.
I think it's incredible that he's out there campaigning. He's really just laying down some stuff. I've seen him say some things that were a little bit like, whoa. I think he said something about lynching a black guy once to his face, that he should be lynched for what he said.
Yes.
I thought that was a pretty
I
extreme.
thought that was
but you
kind
know
of
what?
crazy. I played that clip, Ann. I played that on the show.
Did you now? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty intense. So, okay, so he did that. But I mean, all in all, he's talking about things that everybody else is feeling and seeing, and he's riling up the folks, which is fine. But I think that, unfortunately, he doesn't meet the eligibility statutorily speaking. So, hey, come back in another 5 or 6 years and run again. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But he should get behind Renner because Renner is the only candidate that is not only eligible, but he's really on par with putting Floridians first in everything and doing it in a way, like you said, that's measured, that has thought. He has policies already developed. He has thought through just about everything, including how to deal with AI, which is simple. Pause. Let's do some seriously deep research before we even consider, clearing another square inch of land to build a monster data center, which we have no idea what the health effects are from that. We know there's no real job creation there, and we know we're going to give up a lot of land, and it's going to be very destructive to our environment. But let's look at all the other, ancillary or deleterious effects of an AI data center in your neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And we're pushing back. So we have a 501c4 in the state of Missouri. And I'm challenging all of these Republican bigwigs in the state of Missouri just to a public conversation about it because they're pushing it very
Good.
hard. The bigwigs in the state of Missouri are just jamming AI data centers down the throat of our citizens in Missouri. And I go back and forth between Florida and Missouri. But the bottom line is people don't want it. I mean, everywhere they try to pop one up, the people fight back against it and they just ignore them and they continue to build them. So I'm anxious to have somebody from the Republican Party push back against the leadership, if you understand what I'm saying. What do you think? And speaking of Republican leadership, what is your take on Donald Trump? I think you're like me. We followed Donald Trump. We were big Donald Trump fans. We supported him. I don't know. I worked on his campaign in 2016. When you're talking about the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, now he's pushing for 702 FISA warrants. Are you beginning to see, as I'm describing to my audience, a surveillance state that is coming into fruition? Things that you would have never believed that could possibly happen are now starting to take shape. You've got the kill switches in our vehicles. You got the monitoring of every movie make on our vehicles. You got the flock cameras. You have the AI data centers that are going to surveil and store information.
Yeah.
I'm starting to panic about a complete loss of Fourth Amendment rights and a total control system. And I don't see anybody pushing back on it within either party, really. Do you?
Broadly speaking, no. The only person I see pushing back is Renner here in
Right.
Florida. I
Right.
mean, that's it. I mean, that's the only person who's being very outspoken about AI data centers and the development thereof, unlike Byron, who is being funded by big tech that wants these and is working in lockstep. So you're right. I do see the Palantir prison state being developed broadly across a whole host of areas of our life. But really, it's about gathering this information and funneling it into the bureaucratic machine of Washington, D.C., which, as I spoke to Paul Renner the week before last at a private event at the Trump National in Jupiter. That's right. I said a Trump national property had Paul Renner there. Wink, wink. Hello. Read the writing on the wall, folks. Byron
Yes.
ain't your guy. But he and I specifically had a one-off about agency government. And I started to say, I think we should push it out into the field where it belongs. He said, exactly. The USDA should be in Kansas. And he started rattling off every agency and why they should be dissolved out of DC and stood up in a different form somewhere else. And I said, I couldn't agree with you more. This should be, this shouldn't be a job for life for some civil servant and some SES level executive that is making, $150,000 a year that does nothing but show up to work once a week and push a piece of paper across their
Right.
desk. So, yeah.
Well, I agree with you 100% on your assessment. That's exactly what I see it. I think deconsolidation of power is where we need to start moving. And every time I see power consolidating, I push back against it. And what's funny is I can't really get people to engage in a debate with me, Ann. I'm talking about the people that are pushing these things really hard. They know that we have influence in the state of Missouri, right? They know that we have influence. They know we have a ton of grassroots power behind
Yep.
us, and we drive these people crazy. And all I'm saying is I'm not saying that you're doing anything nefarious with these AI data centers, but come out and have a public conversation with us, and we'll see if they do it. Generally speaking, they'll come on the show, they'll do the interviews, but if we ever want to get really deep into the issues, they all seem to run away. And all these grassroots organizations that claim they're grassroots that support it, they don't want to have public conversations either. I just thought it was something to watch out for in Florida because that's the way it is in Missouri. Let's get to some of the financial stuff. What is your take? I got some pushback. There seems to be a group of people on social media that push back against MMTLP, where we'll go in just a minute, but also the Mike Castellero story. I had him on the show. I found him very endearing. I cannot imagine being in the crosshairs of the SDNY. It appears to me that they mischaracterized his business and then took him down a road. He says they offered, if he would pay $75 million, they'd make it all go away. And now he's looking at 11 years in prison. What is your take on that story? Do you think that this has made it to Donald Trump's desk for a pardon? Peter Tickton, I would think, would have some kind of pull to get it in front of Donald Trump. You have any sense of where that position is at? And do you have any?
I do think between Alice and Peter Tickton, it has made it to Trump's desk. I know he's looking at doing pardons in the month of May, and then I heard there's going to be a huge pardon sweep on July 4th. Now, I heard that, so I can't confirm it. I've not been able to confirm that, but this is what I'm hearing through certain sources, and it would make sense. It's Independence Day, right? But look, let's look at the facts of the case. First of all, you had a private pre-IPO fund, Straight Path Venture Partners, that had made boatloads of money for their investors. And they had a $400 million fund that when the SEC came calling and saying, again, unregulated, they're not part of Regulation D. They are not part of the SEC jurisdiction whatsoever. But the SEC decided to stick their nose under the tent because they all happen to be Trump supporters, by the way, and asked to see if they could audit the books. And so because they were doing nothing wrong and their investors were keenly happy, they said, sure. So they opened the kimono, let them have everything. They produced every single document. It was thousands of documents they produced. And then the SEC decided to collude with the DOJ to press charges. And they basically said that they accused them of naked short selling, which they never did because this was all pre-IPO. They accused them of overcharging in terms of their own fees. Nobody that invested with them was complaining about how much money the three partners made because everybody was making scads of money. So, and a few other choice charges, but, they were found guilty in the Southern District of New York. Shocker, I know,
Right.
by the same Judge Furman who went after Trump. Shocking, I know. So when you start to put all these things together, Rob, it just smells of complete political targeting and weaponization of the government and the agency system, along with the Department of Justice. So this is not the first rodeo for any Americans to hear a story like this, how the government was weaponized against the people. And so they immediately turned this over they bankrupted this company, turned it over to a U.S. bankruptcy trustee, who then proceeded to liquidate the fund by $30 million for administrative costs. What the hell do you do for $30 million?
I know.
And then returned the rest of the money back to the investors who got less out after all of this than they put in. So the whole thing is just nonsense, complete nonsense. It was designed to destroy an entity that was not under the SEC umbrella, but mostly because of partisan political, viewpoints by the SEC. And this is Gary Gensler's SEC. Might I remind everybody who Gary Gensler is? The same SEC
Yeah.
chair who was present during the MMTLP fiasco, who also came from the Hillary Clinton campaign as the chief financial officer for that campaign, which remind everybody this major dot to connect that campaign paid Perkins Coie, the law firm who paid Christopher Steele for the Steele dossier that started the whole Russian collusion hoax.
Amen.
So, I mean,
Yep.
the dots connect. It's just the same old, and the playbook's tired and we got to burn it. We're going to burn it all down. And that's where we are. So I stand with the folks at Straight Path, with Brian Martinson, Michael Castellero, Fran Lanaya. They're wonderful people. And I've known them now personally, and I can only tell you incredible things about them. There's nothing that reeks of impropriety at all. If anything, it's absolutely disgusting what is going on by our government.
I love to hear that because I you kind of connect with people when you talk to them, right? And I was getting into what his family is going through, this and that and the other, and I sensed a very honest person. I just sensed a guy that is getting ready to look at prison time, and he's got a wife and a child, and he's panicking. He's panicking because he's starting to come to the realization that his own government might put him in prison on trumped up charges based on politics, and there's not a lot you can really do. It just feels almost like a helpless situation. So I hope he gets that pardon. I agree with you. My sense of him was that he was telling the truth. You know the details better than I do, but I think he's telling the truth about the situation. Let's get to MMTLP. We'll have a lot of people listening to the show today, and because of MMTLP.
Love those people.
I do too.
They're just so based. They're awesome.
They are unbelievable. The fights going back and forth. You watch these fights that go on between their naysayers and the MMTLP. And
yeah,
what is
go
your
ahead.
take on that? Well, I just wonder what your take on is. Why are these people, and just in your opinion, 3.5 years later, what MMTLP is saying is that they believe they were defrauded out of their money. The U3 halt was the beginning of it. Now they're trying to get public representation. They're public servants to go out and get them justice. And the can is continuing to be kicked down the road. We're 3.5 years later. And then they have these people on social media that are just trying to savage them as though they're these maniacs. What is your take on it? And here's one, Amy right here. She's listening in. She said he was barred by FINRA under Trump. I guess that was Michael Castellero. But what is your take on the pushback from these people on social media? What is their game? Do you understand it?
Well, in my humble estimation, is that agency government is coming under scrutiny in a lot of areas, and it's because the people are standing up and they're recognizing this all fraud, and they're recognizing it's rules for thee and not for me. And so, just like what we've learned with certain governments that are hiring social media influencers and paying them lots of money through FARA registration paperwork that we're now all very familiar with. They have bots and trolls that are farms. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of farms of bots and trolls to go out there and attack. So when the government, as we now know, is in the crosshairs, particularly the agency government, they are feeling the heat. And I mean, I think MMTLP has brought the fire for so long, and they have singed the hairs up the noses of some of these dirtbags in the bureaucracy. That, of course,
Right.
we know they're gonna send the trolls. That's just what happens. It is information war at its highest level, and it's not going away. It's not going away until we literally burn it all down, Rob. We've got to get back to the basics. And the sad fact is that MMTLP did absolutely nothing wrong. And it has been well documented by their own words that SEC colluded with Wall Street to ensure that all the Wall Street agencies and broker dealers that nakedly sold stock they didn't own of MMTLP, which, by the way, was never to trade. That was supposed to be a Series A dividend. It was just somebody from Wall Street called FINRA and said, "Hey, I want to trade this ticker." Sure, go ahead. Completely against the corporate action, the paperwork put forth by both CEOs that did that reverse merger and spun out MMTLP. So, I mean, all of this is just such nonsense. I'm wearing my dog tag right now, Rob. It's nonsense. And so they're fighting back hard because they're losing the information war. And so they're going to try and discourage you and disparage the MMTLP people who are good people. You know what? I tell the MMTL people, just get vicious right back at them. Screw them. Who cares? They're garbage. Don't take this stuff. Tell them to shove it.
Well, they're lying about me. That's why I said, well, wait a minute here.
They lie about me all the time. Who cares?
That's when I started to recognize something was amiss, because at first I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm on the wrong side of this. Let me at least explore it just a little bit. And what I tell the people on the other side is everybody within MMTLP will have whatever they'll talk to me for 6 hours. John Berta came on my show. And I'm kind of known as somebody who will get down to the bottom of it if I understand what's going on. He came on the show, no strings attached, and when I was doing the radio show, and answered every question that I could think to ask him, and did it with a breeze. He did not seem concerned. He did not seem like he was lying. It's you just take a measure of somebody when they're sitting across looking you in the eye, and he seemed very credible to me. And then I go out onto social media and I watch these people that are fighting against the MMTLP people, and they're calling me a hack, that I'm using it for engagement to make money on X. And Isaiah is my producer. Are we making any money on X, Isaiah, that you're aware of? If there is, you better give it to me, because I don't know what's going on.
Not yet.
I don't even know if we're trying to make money on X. I really don't even know what the situation
No,
is.
you have to get 5 million impressions in 3 months to monetize. I don't, you're on your way there.
Yeah, well, maybe someday. But that was never the point. The point was, I look at things that are corrupt and I begin to ask questions, and it doesn't matter really what it is. We do local stories, we do national. But the way these people were attacking me, I'm like, look, I just want transparency. I don't understand the markets like Ann Vandersteel. I don't understand the market like Junk Savvy. I don't understand them. I just don't understand them that well. So you can come on and debate it. We can have a conversation. But even that, they were firing back at me. That's why I was wondering if it happened to you. Did you get pounded away just for supporting MMTLP? Did they come after you?
Oh yeah, I had several, but I was also warned about the usual suspects. And frankly, I don't care. I'm used to dealing with trolls. I find it entertaining. Amy's asking, why did they get a QSIP and make it eligible to trade? Amy, my understanding is that the corporate action that was put forth by Torchlight and Metamaterials was that this was MMTLP was a Series A preferred share, to be a placeholder, to be held, not to be traded. It said it right in their corporate action. I know Junk Savvy has talked about this ad nauseum, and somebody from Wall Street contacted FINRA. Well, Kathy Rumler, who is Obama's attorney, was on the board of FINRA at the time, and she's a dirtbag. She's from Goldman Sachs. Well, I know. I call them what they are. They're dirtbags. So, somebody from Wall Street wanted to make money, and we know that FINRA and the SEC aren't here to protect us. They're here to protect Wall Street, to make sure everybody makes money. Because remember, it's a revolving door. SEC worked on Wall Street. They went back to the SEC. They go back to Wall Street. It's just a revolving door, in and out, from industry to regulator, and back. Never about the people. So anyway, they somehow got this stock ticker trading. It was never to trade. And the John Barta and George Palacaros called FINRA and said, what the hell is going on? It's not supposed to trade. And FINRA said, oops, well, it is now. Sorry. And they let it go. So that's just unconscionable. I mean, this is supposed to be some kind of highfalutin regulators. Give me a freaking break. They're just criminals, protecting criminals.
Well, that's what I say. They don't answer any questions. No, I was really going after, we had a caller, or a listener, I should say, from St. Louis get a hold of me. I was actually coming back from Mar-a-Lago. We went down there for a radio trip. We were coming back from Mar-a-Lago, and he calls me and he tells me the story. And I said, well, listen, it's a little complicated. Give me the information when I get back into town. And I said, so what's been going on? I had this conversation with him, and he goes, I've been trying to get to Ann Wagner. I said, well, I think we can get to Ann Wagner. We had relationships with people involved in her operation. So we got a hold. They said they would give us an answer right away. It gets to Ann Wagner, and we get a statement back that says it's under investigation and cannot make a statement. And I said, well, this is the way this seems to work. I mean, if you want to get public representation, right, because that's what Ann Wagner's supposed to do, is protect her constituents and ask questions and get to the bottom of it. They say it's under investigation, and then you don't even have a government to help you anymore. It's just like it just goes out into the abyss and nothing ever happens. And that's why I wonder, do you think that this Justice Department, or I don't know how this ever gets resolved? Do you have a sense of whether this can be resolved through the courts?
Well, can it get resolved through the courts? I guess that really depends if we actually get a judge who will side on the side, who will be on the side of justice.
That's
My
sad.
hope is, and I've been open about this. I delivered a dossier to the Department of Justice on a lot of the criminality of what happened with MMTLP. And I believe we're going to be speaking with the Department of Justice about, various things that happened with MMTLP and the criminality in the not too distant future. Because, when you're looking at this holistically, everything that has happened to us, Rob, since the beginning of the Russian collusion when President Trump took office, all of those players are involved in the MMTLP fiasco. So, or should I say, not all of them, some of them are, and they all connect. And again, it's always about money. It's always about fleecing America, everything they do. I did a show yesterday where I had Don Brown on. He ran for Senate in North Carolina, and we were talking about tariffs. Well, since the Supreme Court shot it down, the corporations that, paid the tariffs got refunded, but the consumers who bought the goods from the corporations who passed the tariff on to the consumer, now that the corporation got the refund, are we going to get it? No, hell no. The corporations are making out. Don't worry about it. And this is exactly what is going on here. Corporations, Wall Street, anybody but you and me on Main Street. That's the name of the game, and it's tiresome. And Americans have woken up to this, and they're getting pissed, which is why they're asking these questions. Which is why the agency government is fighting back with everything they've got, including sending out their troll farms, because they know they're under a microscope, they know the spotlight's on them, and they know they've been exposed. Now it's going to be really up to, do we have good people in the DOJ who are going to do something about it and force the few members like Tim Burchett and maybe a few others, Tom Massey, to actually stand up and fight back.
Yeah, you're right on the same page with me and the same people. I like Tim Burchett and I like Thomas Massey.
Did you see Tim Burchett's interview about the underwater submersibles?
Yes.
That
What do you
was
think of that?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's crazy stuff going on in our world, is there not?
Well, you know what? Like, let me just say this. If a UFO landed in your backyard, you'd be like, wow, that's so cool. But would you be afraid of it at this point? Because, I mean, if they've been here this long, like these people are now telling us they've been here forever, which I believe, they haven't done anything.
You believe these things are true? Because I'm curious. I don't know the answer to that. I always tell my audience I don't know
believe
this.
that we have alien life form here. I mean, look at Congress.
Good point.
No, I do. I think we have other life form here. I mean, it's a massive universe out there, and I do believe it. I do believe it, and I think it's actually, if they were going to do harm to us, I think they would have done it already. So
Yeah.
I think that I think possibly they could have stopped a few things. I mean, the fact that we haven't had a nuclear war with the nutbags that are running around out there is, to me, maybe it's because they intervened. I mean, they had UFOs flying over missile silos. Who knows? Who knows what's going on?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I can't wait to see this information really come out so that it begins a public discussion. And if they give us any proof, like of these crafts that have landed where people can see them and observe them, and that would be a really interesting scenario for Americans. I'd like that to happen in my lifetime, if that's okay, Ann. I'd like to.
Well, it's already happened in my lifetime. My husband and I and our kids, and plus that we had there were 6 of us in the car, were driving home one day, and it was late summer, 6:00 at night, sun in the west, just like low, not too low in the sky, but high enough that it was shining out east over the ocean where we were driving along parallel heading south. And I saw Tic Tac floating in the sky. And at first I thought it was a plane, and I realized, no, it's not a plane, no wings, no windows. It was a Tic Tac, and giant white Tic Tac. And I went to get my cell phone to take a picture. My husband goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to take a picture." He goes, "No, you're not." And I looked up. We'd been watching it for about 45 seconds. And I looked up, and it was making sort of a dotted line dash in the sky. It was there, gone, like a dotted line, boom, headed south. I think it was in Miami in like 1 second. And so, and I live up in Palm Beach. So it was quite impressive. I'd never seen one of those before. I went and looked it up, and sure enough, that's the most commonly seen UFO. So me and the kids, we all saw it.
Wow, no kidding. Did you see Owen? You know who Owen Schroyer is from InfoWars?
Yeah.
Owen Schroyer said the same thing. He's driving through Austin, and he says he freaks out about it. He said, whatever's in the sky is close enough that you can almost see what it is. And it's just floating and moving, and it's not anything that I've ever seen before. And he was like freaked out about it, made this big to do. And then all of a sudden this information about UFOs became, kind of a public square conversation where everybody's starting to talk about it. Congress is starting to talk about it. I'm fascinated by it. We talk about it on this show as well. So we'll follow it.
This was almost 20 years. Rob, this is probably 17, 18 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Last question for you, because I appreciate your time. Last question. You sent me a video the other day, and you were talking about this video of the disappearing hat at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah. So I did update that post because
what is your take on that?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't notice it had an AI stamp on it. So somebody had taken that video and enhanced it, which is interesting. For what, I don't know, because it really didn't help. It added artifacts that were very distracting to the point that I saw this at 5 a.m. I was like, look at this. I must have looked at it for 45 minutes before I decided to create a little video, slow it down, and do everything I did to enhance it.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday because, and I said it's AI generated.
See the hat? It looks like he's got a hat, right?
Yep. And then it goes away.
All of a sudden, it's gone. He has this weird hair.
Right.
So
if you look at the start right there, he's got a sign. If you look at the shooter, can you rewind that back to the beginning, Isaiah? If you look right here, he's got a sign in the hallway. See it right there?
Yep.
Right?
I mean, there's a lot of weird things in this video.
And it disappears, but I had been told that it was AI, so we talked about it when we played this video that you put out the other day. And what's interesting to me is, and I'm just curious your opinion, because you're a savvy, wise person. What do you think of the video in general? I mean, just because what Donald Trump put out on social is all grainy. You can't even see it.
So, I mean, somebody put this up, and I echoed it. My Ring camera does a better job. For
Right.
150 bucks, I have 4 Ring cameras all over my house that, that do a hell of a good job that I can see. I can like see the whites of their eyeballs. So
Correct.
why do we have CCTV or any sort of security cameras in hotels where the president's going to be speaking that look like this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and they've been at that whole hotel all the way back to the Reagan days. So you would think that
Hello.
either the federal government or the hotel itself would make sure that the security and the cameras were, up to par. And here we have a shooting where the only video is running through this grainy, crazy camera where you can't see anything. Anyway, I think that's why conspiracy theorists thrive in this environment, is because nothing seems to make any sense. Would you agree with that?
With that,
Oh, there you are. Say that one more time.
I said I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. And Vandersteel, I think you are absolutely spectacular. I really appreciate you coming on. I will see you. I'm
likewise.
going to get down there on May 23rd. We'll meet in person for the first time. I love your work. There are very few people, and I'm very critical of the media, very critical. I think that's why I don't get on a lot of their shows. But I like what you do. I think that you're able to take very complicated issues and boil them down to where, everybody can understand it, because you got to have the masses understand what's going on. I would consider myself that kind of person, to where you got to make it make sense to me. And I think you do a terrific job of it. I love your work, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, Rob, thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate everything you're doing. Sorry, my internet crapped out. It is what
No
it
worries.
is.
No worries. We'll be in touch soon, and we'll make arrangements to see you on the 23rd.
Super. Thanks, Rob. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day. And Vandersteel, everybody.